sure that we orient everybody to Zoom. We know that everybody's probably zoomed out, but it doesn't hurt to give some reminders. Please keep muted unless you're speaking. You have the option to click the grid view on the top right of your screen to see more callers. If you're on a computer, the controls may be different on a mobile device. There's a chat function that's at the bottom of every screen that you can use to comment or ask questions. We want to have an organic, of course, because this is USGBC and we want to have an organic conversation with people unmuting and muting themselves. And so please feel free to jump in after we've had, I think, Kevin, you prepared to talk for about maybe 10, 15 minutes or so. And
yes,
then we'll have a discussion. And so with that, I want to introduce Mr. Kevin Bryant of Kingsway Development. He is the founder of Conversions Global Marketing, and his portfolio reflects nearly 20 years of experience with work for Monsanto, Anheuser-Busch, Jones Lang, LaSalle, Diadora, Grace Hill Health Centers, the Harris-Stowe State University, and Family and Workforce Centers of America. His experience includes journalism, design, marketing, promotions, digital communication across all challenges, and he has a flair and insight for effectiveness unbound by locality or convention. Kevin is currently leading the community building developer for the Kingsway Central West End corridor, retaining master development rights for 207 acres of the Kingsway district, of which one of Abner's properties is a proud member of. With that, Kevin, my friend, take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. I need to take you everywhere I go. That was awesome. Good morning, everyone. I want to try and cover about 6 years worth of work in 10 minutes and see if we can kind of round it down to some things that hopefully we can open up for discussion. I also I'm trying to get one of my engineers to log on at the last moment. He had another meeting I'm trying to tear him away from, so that if there's any engineering questions, that is not my field, but he can answer for you guys a lot more effectively than I can. So with that said, I'm going to share screens now. We'll walk through a slide presentation I put together just for this group. All right, can everyone see that? All right, so as Nicole said, I am the proud master developer for the Kingsway area, which is about 207 acres north of the Central West End. I did not intend to be a developer. I was kind of forced into it. My background is actually marketing. I've been in marketing for 20 years. I love my field. I love my career. It just so happened that my office sat on the corner of Delmar and Euclid. And any of you who are familiar with Delmar, it's been somewhat of a Mason-Dixon line for the haves and the have-nots in St. Louis. And so I started out just really complaining about it to SLDC to see if they were going to put any of the same efforts in developing North St. Louis that they were developing south of St. Louis. And I was a part of a lot of those programs, so I know what efforts went into that development. And from there, they passed the ball back to me. The commercial district director asked me to chair the SBD. The SBD, the Special Business District, was doing about $15,000 or $20,000 a year in taxes. So it wasn't enough to make any meaningful change. So about 2016, I was asked to serve as president of that board. And I said I'd serve as president only under one condition, and that was if we could take whatever was in our treasury, I would match it, and we will hire the same urban planners and the same architects that were developing some of the larger projects in St. Louis and hire them for a plan for North St. Louis. That plan became the Kingsway Development Plan. It led to a blighting ordinance by the alderman at the time. That blighting ordinance kicked off an RFP for developers. We put our development plan up against every other plan that was submitted for the area, and we just so happened to win. I did not expect to win, but what we did was we developed a plan that did not make me the exclusive developer for the area, but actually the developer that would attract other developers and just kind of be a traffic cop. So what we are working with is what you see there now. Our development area encompass Delmar, Kings Highway, Page to Taylor. That's this area right here. And what you'll see over here is a heat map. This heat map basically illustrates the amount of social activity and athletic activity, meaning trails, jogging, bike riding, that happens south of Delmar, and activities that happen north of Delmar, which was nearly none. So it kind of, I love this map because it kind of illustrates what communities are doing. And clearly these communities are not active and socially cohesive in any way. And these communities where all the money is are very, very active and very cohesive. So we knew when we started out, no matter what we developed over here, it needed to create a type of pool that would lead to more community synergy and activity. And that's very important when you're dealing with communities that are primarily African American, because I grew up in a community. It did not matter that the communities were poor. We were always outside. We were always bike riding and playing hide and go seek and tackling each other. It was a very active community. And you don't see that now. You see people kind of just work and go in the house. So as we began to develop a plan for the area, we knew we had to combat a lot of things. We're not just talking about development. We're talking about people, social issues, crime, etc. There's a term called sacrifice zones. I don't particularly like the term, but it does describe what areas like these are called. And these are areas that are pretty much abandoned due to either economic disinvestment or geographical issues, floodplains, etc. So this is definitely an area that has been historically disinvested upon. So now, how do we begin to affect this with no background in development or what I was about to take on from the highest level? It began with community involvement. So we spent about 2 years planning, talking to neighbors, getting involved, trying to dissect what the underlying issues were. Did we need to get Urban League involved? You know, where was the crime coming from? And we got very fortunate in that, you know, a lot of the crime that was holding this neighborhood back was not from the residents. It was just from the disinvestment that had happened over years. And when there's an area that is not protected, of course, crime moves in. So the first thing we had to do was begin to understand that so that we would know what our next steps would be before we just started talking about bringing in new people and building new houses. That led to what's called a community development agreement. You might start hearing a lot more about those types of agreements between communities. And that is saying to the community, hey, we're going to start creating a lot of change in these neighborhoods. We're going to start putting in new houses and attracting new neighbors. And we want to make sure that you are a part of that. And we make sure you're a part of that by creating these agreements where you have the opportunity to be at the table. That led in me creating a organization called Park Place Housing and Economic Development. It's a housing board that I created for the neighborhood along with Washington University and Park Central, and turned it over to the neighborhood. So now everyone in this community has an opportunity to be a part of development, all the way down to deciding whether or not, if I'm attracting a particular developer, you know, whether it's McCormick Barron or Rise, you have the opportunity to decide if you even like what they're proposing for the neighborhood, as opposed to you waking up one day and there's a development happening and you had no say in it. So Park Place allows the neighbors to be involved at the highest level to make decisions that determine who's going to be the developers in your neighborhood, who's going to be a part of the change. The next most important relationship you have to have is with your seniors and with your aldermen. And we got very lucky in that we had a new alderman by the name of Jesse Todd. Jesse is a very fearless politician. In fact, he really didn't start out wanting to be the alderman. He was just a very active person in the community for the past 40 or 50 years. But the importance of him was everyone, no matter what you're doing, is not going to love you. Is not going to love what you're trying to do, even if you know you're trying to do the best things in this community. You're dealing with a lot of fear, a lot of poverty, a lot of anxiety, and you're also dealing with people that are just going to try and bend whatever happens toward their own benefit. And you need an alderman or who's ever in charge of the politics of that neighborhood to be able to steward those relationships and allow everyone to work toward the same goals. It's not important that we all agree on every single thing. It's just important that our goals align. And where our goals align, that's where goals aligns are where we're allowed to move forward. So with that, we began to plan for the future. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So we took the 207 acres and we divided them up into 14 projects that we would not only promote as sort of the canaries in the coal mine, but we would also set up for other organizations that we thought would be right for this neighborhood. So we started reaching out to organizations like RISE. We reached out to Trivers Architect, of course, Abner Engineering, saying, hey, here's what we're trying to do. How do we do it? We didn't take the position that all of a sudden we were going to learn how to be engineers. We were going to learn how to be architects, but we could identify those organizations that were out there that had the best track records, the best record of racial equity, and saying, hey, here's a neighborhood that we think we can bring back. Would you like to be a part of helping us do this? And that's how we came down to the final organizations and lenders that we targeted to help move this area forward. The largest challenge you're going to have then is how do you pay people? You know, once you have all of these wonderful plans, where does the money come from? Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with a economically disadvantaged, disinvested neighborhood for over 30 years. That is not where banks look to invest. So you have a lot of outside investors that you have to convince of a vision of what this community can be. We were very lucky in that we sat right off the shoulder of the Central West End, which is one of the highest valued real estate tracts in St. Louis. So our biggest challenge was to let lenders and outside investors know that we're just trying to create the affordable side of the Central West End. We know we're not going to match the Central West End, but it's the same housing stock. Can we create a neighborhood made of that same housing stock, but make it affordable? And the only way to do that has been with subsidies, and I'll talk about that shortly. The next thing we had to do was create wealth in this neighborhood, and you create wealth by attracting businesses that have a good hiring practices and generate taxes. We started out trying to find Urban Target, Walmart, Quick Trips, organizations like that were ran really well, and see if we could attract them to the area. One of the hardest franchises that we were able to land was Jamba Juice. You know, this neighborhood is not Jamba Juice's target audience, and they were already over at SLU, and they were targeting a younger, higher educated client base. So one of the things that they liked, though, was not how the neighborhood sat right now, but the potential for the neighborhood 2 or 3 years down the line. The other organizations that you see down there, out of the 6 organizations or franchises that we attracted over here, 4 we created from scratch. And we created them because we knew we had to attract the type of businesses that would work now and also work 10 years from now. And when you find they don't exist, sometimes you have to create them. You find yourself in a dilemma when you're creating development plans for areas like this, where you don't see larger developers finding any appetite to build, let's say, the Galleria north of Delmar, but you see north of Delmar at the Galleria. So you got to find these middle organizations, and where they don't exist, you sometimes have to create them. This is a screenshot of what Delmar and Euclid looks like now. The lot you see over to your right represents the Central West End. It's a block long and it's been vacant for about 15 years. It used to belong to the apartment building. It's off camera a little to the west that's now owned by Diane Cullinan. And she redeveloped an old apartment building, off mixed use building there, and it's now market rate. And it is a wonderful example of what this neighborhood could be. And it also gave us the precedence to create our next project, and that is the Bridge Apartments. So that is what this corner will look like in 2 years. It's a 156 unit market rate apartment. We already have about 3/4 of the project's planned. We're now going into the engineering phases of the plans for the building. Um, it's going to be market rate, but about I think we're at about 50 cents per square foot less than the surrounding competitive projects, buildings that are similar. And it's going to be transformative for the area because it speaks to what this area can be and how you can serve both sides of the street without either side exclusively. We fought with a lot of architects when we were originally designing it to not put the main interest of the building on Euclid, which is basically the Delmar, the Central West End side, but to put it on Delmar, which is the middle courier, if not north side of the building. That way the building is not turning its back on North St. Louis, but it's also welcoming it. Another project that we are planning now is the redevelopment of an old school building. This school building is about 124 years old. It was created, the architect's name escapes me right now, but it was created in such a way that it is still rock solid. And a lot of schools are becoming vacant and abandoned around St. Louis, but you're also seeing a lot of developers doing adaptive reuse. Um, Transforming these buildings into what they can be to serve the communities as they are now and not where they were 124 years ago. We have found an aging population in this community, so we are creating a senior apartment building, and the community seems to be really, really excited about it. Our flagship project, which is the first project to break ground in January, is one of those projects I spoke to a second ago that was created from scratch, and that was the Elevation Workspace. That's the transformation and adaptive reuse of a 25,000 square foot old warehouse and office space. This warehouse and office space now contains 28 new state-of-the-art office spaces. This bottom corridor will host our new franchises that I spoke about, including UPS Store, Jamba Juice, and the Original Hot Dog Factory. The significance of those businesses are that I own each of those franchises, which means that these franchises aren't there just to make smoothies and hot dogs. They're there to teach neighborhood children how to own businesses. So when you're working in either of these businesses, you are on mission. And the mission of each of these franchises are not just to serve the community, but to give birth to entrepreneurs. This is a side by side, before and after. And this is the future corridor. So between these three buildings, that's all one project. This building is our future plans. If we could come to agreement on price, and I think we're getting there, for the old Brown Corps Camp building, and this building right here in the space between the two. That right there is going to be a 10,000 square foot performing arts theater. So now you have a campus for entrepreneurs, and we're not just creating businesses that generate taxes, but we're creating businesses that are embedded in the neighborhood. And we are about 5 projects in, including the first new houses that were built, that's going to be built in this neighborhood in 50 years. Street improvements along Delmar, and that's one of the projects that we're working with Abner Engineering for. A great little coffee house that sits around Fountain Park that's been abandoned for about 30 years now. There's barely a structure there, and we're gonna resurrect it and make it the exact same look that it was before in order to fit into the historic context of the neighborhood and make it the neighborhood community center. And then finally, at the corner of Delmar and Taylor, you see a early rendering of what's going to be a healthcare center to serve the aging population in that community. And this is some of our engineering stats on the improvements on the building, the elevation building that we're going to start on. And I'm not sure if one of my engineers logged on. I don't see him, but we're going to try and walk through that the best we can.
I'm here, Kev.
Oh, are you there? Okay. All right. So this is Scott Fowler. And Scott, if you could just give us a little blush about the improvements that you guys are going to be making on the elevation building.
Absolutely. So the elevation building currently is, I think that building dates back to somewhere in the 30s, doesn't it, Kevin? 30s, early 40s.
Sir.
It was a commercial industrial dry cleaning facility. Originally, we've got extremely tall floors on this, 18-foot floor to floor. Pardon me. So we're going to come in and we're going to put additional insulation on the interior of the walls themselves that will exceed the building code minimums currently for energy code. Also use new high efficiency windows. We're going to be using Winco. That's part of the sustainability plan. Winco, as you guys know, is located up in University City, so that not only provides local jobs, it reduces all of our shipping costs to the job site as part of the sustainable plan. We'll be putting a high performance roof with additional insulation up on the roof itself. The HVAC system that we're putting in is a Daikin system. It's the VRV-VRF. It's the highest efficiency system available on the market today. So that's going to further reduce. We could have saved some dollars, could have saved Kevin some dollars if we'd have gone with a traditional rooftop and VAV. But Kevin chose to go the route of VRV-VRF for the energy savings. And that actually is going to help Kevin's bottom line over the long haul, because he'll have much lower operating costs for the building, not only in elevation, but the emerge building also. And the emerge building is going to get the same treatments as the elevation building. So we'll be using VRV in there. We'll be using Winco for our windows, increased insulation on the inside and on the roof. And we're doing everything that we possibly can, right down to using heat pump water heaters in the building. And then I'm harvesting the cold air that comes off those heat pump water heaters to air condition the MDF, which is, you know, your main distribution frame for the IT services. We always have to air condition those rooms to keep all the IT equipment, the switches and network gear cool. So I'm harvesting that cold air that comes off those heat pump water heaters to keep those rooms cool, which again reduces his overall not only carbon footprint, but electric consumption within the building. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Scott. If you can hang on in case there's any follow-up questions, I'm going to turn this back over to Nicole.
Thanks, Kevin. So we'll jump right in. I think Scott has already talked about some of the energy efficiencies that are being built into some of the projects. Can you talk about what focus you've had on sustainable materials?
On the sustainable materials, we will be using a variety of items in there that have high recycled content. Everything from drywall. We're looking at some alternative flooring methods for the building that will hopefully meet all the sustainable goals that we want to meet. So we are going to try to encompass everything that we can. Now, one thing, we are not going for a LEED certified building here. We're just trying to follow as much of the process as we can in the construction.
Okay. Are there any other, someone asked if you would repeat the boundaries of the district again, Kevin?
Yes, I was actually typing them when you spoke. They are Delmar, Kings Highway, Page to Taylor.
Okay.
And I also put the website in. Okay, I was typing while I was talking. I also put the website in so that you can go to the website and actually download the maps and see everything that we're doing. You can also go to SLDC's website and see the TIF plan, which was approved Wednesday, yay. And that allows you to see what are the 5 projects along Delmar that are going to be the most impactful, as well as their sources and uses. So you'll be able to see the capital stack, what our plans are, and hopefully what the ROI for St. Louis is going to be for investing in the project.
Okay, so there's some really good questions. One is, what about home revitalization, and particularly revitalizing those homes for energy efficiency?
Yeah, so we're very early in that process. We're still raising capital. The first homes that we have underway, we have about $1.2 million worth of residential construction going on right now. That sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Each of these homes are they're averaging about $200,000 each to rehab. These are those same homes built in 1904. These are rock solid 2- and 3-story homes. So that doesn't go a long way. So the only way we've been able to move forward is through landing subsidies. And that's how we started the first 6. We've landed what's called National Preservation Act tax credits. Those are worth about $70,000 each. It's a lottery. So we've applied for about 14 and we've landed 10. And that's very, very good. But as we turn those 10, we're able to go back and apply for more. Each of our contractors work individually. We have McCulley Homes and VIP Construction. We're trying to solidify our relationship with a modular builder called Homeway Homes out of Deer Creek, Illinois. And they are going to be planning our energy efficient homes for the block of Albert and the block of Baird. And we're just beginning that process, but those will be solar ready, energy efficient, top of the line homes, and we're doing them in bunches of 8. So I would say around March we'll have hard plans with all the data of what each of these homes would encompass. But I would also recommend anyone who's interested in HomeWay to go to their website and look at their product. They're fantastic.
Thank you so much. That question was from Victoria. And interestingly, Steve O'Rourke had also asked about solar ready, the city solar ready ordinance for those homes outside of that main development area, because I remember when you brought this idea, actually, for many people don't know, Kevin has been working on this for years. And so some of the homes going north of there, are you able to help facilitate some additional solar opportunities, even for those homes that you're not doing the big renovations on?
We're completely reliant on our relationship with SLDC to facilitate that level of commitment. We're committed as a development company, but there's also the need for SLDC to help us with landing those types of relationships for every other developer that comes in here. I can only control my projects, which are always going to be energy efficient, right down to the apartment building where we're actually working with the aldermen to make sure that we have EV outlets for cars that are coming in. But we can only control the houses that we're creating. I wish we could do more, but that's where the housing board has to come in and create those relationships.
Okay, and we're at 10:30. How are you on time? And Freddie, how are we collectively on time? Can we go another 10, 15 minutes or so?
It's up to you, Kevin. I say at least 5 more minutes. If
I'm
folks
good.
still have more questions.
I'm having fun, so I'm
Okay,
fine.
great.
Good. I was hoping so. But for those who don't know, Kevin and I are friends. I was just going to tell them that we need to keep going.
I had no choice.
But in all seriousness, so there are some really good questions here. One, I'd like to go to Joyce Gorell, and she said that she asked, will there be any modification based on what we've learned with COVID? I would imagine not only for the building, but also for the residential spaces. She said, will there be a consideration of increased air circulation, spaces between office, co-working spaces? Maybe Scott can start and you can follow up on your general vision.
I would be happy to. So the projects at Amoresco myself are involved in are elevation, circuit, and emerge. All 3 of those buildings, we're going to be installing needlepoint ionization in each one of the air handling units. This particular needlepoint ionization has been certified to kill COVID, kills 99.4% of all the viruses that come through. So each one of the air handling units that we install, whether it's the outside air units that are coming in or the incremental units within the space itself, will all have the needlepoint ionization to help mitigate as best we can the COVID virus. Now, obviously, with that, you're still going to have to go through traditional sterilization, decontamination of surfaces. This is only used for airborne, to kill the airborne virus itself. But yes, we are taking that into account in our design.
Thank you. And then, Kevin, has there been any thought in the flow of the workspace itself in terms of how that will be organized for those in-person spaces? Because one of the things that we've learned ourselves are some things such as, when we get to flu season, there's things other than COVID that normal everyday distance makes some sense for.
Yeah, actually, COVID worked hand in hand with the market, actually. It really just sped up some of the things that were looming in our planning for the building anyway, like co-working. So co-working was cut down to 1/3 in that space, and it just went hand in hand with our fears anyway, because we saw in the marketplace an oversaturation of co-working space, whereas 6 years ago it was booming. And we thought it would be a fantastic addition for this community. This is a community where co-working space prior to 6 years ago was the bread company. That's where you met your clients at. You know what I mean? So as we see the collapse of WeWork and oversaturation in the market, when COVID came and we had to now be concerned about traffic and spaces, it was just absolutely, let's cut that down, if not eliminate it. We've created smaller individual offices, which sold out. We're 100% sold out in the building, which is remarkable considering the area. So it really just expedited what was already in the marketplace. I think other than that, we created one additional exit for traffic flow in the building, which was also a challenge because now you're getting into earthquake codes and wall destabilization and stuff that Scott has to beat me up about. But we added it to the cost, and at the end of the day, I think we have a fantastic new product.
So we're going to do a lightning round, Kevin, and see if we can get in a few more questions before Freddie has yet to give me the hook, the shepherd's hook. But from Linda Tatum, did you do any exploration of green roofs for any of these projects?
Scott, I think we talked about that early on. Do you remember where we stopped that conversation?
Yeah, we did. Much of the green roof technology out there is quite solid. In fact, I'm doing a green roof over in Kansas City as we speak, Kansas City, Kansas, for the unified government over there. Green roofs tend to be quite expensive, and obviously these are businesses that Kevin's trying to get off the ground and run. So unfortunately, it just didn't fit in the budget plan. Green roofs tend to run double what a traditional roof does. So unfortunately, because of budgetary concerns, we had to eliminate that option.
Yeah, our budget did have a ceiling. It was only 6.2 million, which sounds like a lot again, but many of you are experienced, you know that is not a lot. And at the end of the day, unless I was prepared to pass those costs over to the poor entrepreneurs that we're trying to get into the building, there just becomes a line at which we have to say, well, we love to do everything, but we can't. It's kind of like I would love to save gas, but I can't afford a Tesla right now.
Right, right. Speaking of affordability, the homes that are being rehabbed, will they be affordable for residents who already live in the area? What, if any, kind of discussions have you had with banks, or have some of the banks given you some impression of how they would look towards other properties in your boundaries
Well,
to make
We're- all the properties Kingsway are developing are below the affordable housing ceiling for the area, which is 185,000. And
Okay.
that is very intentional. You know, what we're trying to do is get those single family homeowners that's going to care about the neighborhood over there. Get them looking at, because when you get over $200,000 anyway, you're dealing with people who have options. You know, do I look at coming into this neighborhood on the men? Do I just go to U City? You know
Right.
what I mean? So there's this fine line. So our target audience is that BJC WashU network of people. You know what I mean? Hey, here's a house. It's 2,500 square feet. That's $100,000 less 100 feet from here. Just 100 feet, I can save you $100,000. But now you have this fantastic homeowner who's gonna get involved, who's gonna care about the yard, who's gonna plant a garden, and that's what we're trying to do, and keep it below the affordable housing ceiling. And the only way we're able to do that is through landing these subsidies, and that's where the city and the state has to participate.
Next question, and I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer it. What tool, if any, are you using to enforce community benefit or development agreements?
The housing board. I'm probably the first developer to ever create a housing board to hold myself accountable. That housing board is now exploring what's going to be called a form-based code for the neighborhood, which now forces any developer or any homeowner that wants to build or come into the neighborhood to the same standard that you see directly across the street, which means if you want to build a porch, you know, you're going to have to make sure you get a permit. You're going to have to make sure that it fits within the landscape of the area. You can't just do whatever you want to do here and have your gutter hung together by your cousin who went by Home Depot. And it's going to get down to the species of the tree. And that's about 2 years out.
I'm glad that you've mentioned that as well. And we trust that there will be a focus on native species.
Absolutely, 100%. And again, I am learning. So what I've been very fortunate with is being able to find people like yourself, like Scott, the guys at Trivers. We're working with DTLS landscape architects to educate me and the community at the same time. I don't have a 30-year track record of doing this, but I do have a 30-year relationship with other communities who have done this. So we're just saying, hey, help us learn everything that you've done over here to implement it in our community.
And the last question is, how can individuals get involved, either as an investor or donating to perhaps the projects for seniors?
You can reach out to Park Place Housing. I'm going to type in the website in the chat real quick. And they are the arm of all things nonprofit as it relates to the community. If you want to donate to things that affect the larger plan, then you can also reach out. As far as the businesses and the co-working, you can reach out to myself through Kingsway, and I want to put in my nonprofit's website so you can see our mission there. So community, Park Place, business, collective work. Our next fundraiser is going to be for our beautiful fountain in Fountain Park. We're going to try and raise about 30 grand, which is the cost to refurbish it and get it functioning again. Maybe get some LED lights on it. And it doesn't have to come from any individual. Call your bank and tell them to drop those CRA dollars on the housing board.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. We appreciate your time today. I'm gonna steal a little bit of Freddie's thunder before I turn it back over to her, but just say that I think you did a fabulous job of talking about how we can improve disinvested areas, because we know, of course, the greenest building is the building that already exists. So we're pleased that you have so many adaptive reuse incorporated into your plan. And on behalf of the chapter, want to thank you so much and invite you to consider being a member. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Frederica.
Nicole, will the video be available after the meeting's over?
And Miss Freddie can answer that. Thank you for that question, Scott.
Thank you.
It's also good to see you as well. It's been some time.
It has.
Yes, yeah, we can stay, Emily, Nicole, Scott, and we could stay on the call for a little bit longer if that's what you were thinking. But yes, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and hopefully you enjoyed the conversation and learned a little bit. And we are really excited that you are really excited, because we definitely want to be a part of this growth and development in North St. Louis. So thanks so much for being here. I'll just type into the chat our website, and we'll see you in January for our next round of coffee breaks.
And the question was, Freddie, how can people get the recording, and will you also share the links that were posted in the chat?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we will.
Emily said it'll be on the YouTube channel.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll probably send a follow-up email to all the registrants, because I know some people were not able to make it this morning. But yep. Perfect.
Okay.
And I'll save the chat as well for any questions that weren't answered. So thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your Friday. Have a great weekend. And I believe today's the start of Hanukkah. So happy celebration.
Thanks, Freddie.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. See you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, I guess we are ending. Okay, cool. Bye, Nicole. Thank you so much. See you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, Victoria. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I was muted. I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. Thanks, Freddie.
Okay.
Thank you, Nicole. This was a great program. Had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Okay. And Freddie, just
Yes.
email me. Let me know when you're next available to talk so we can follow up on the stuff
Yes.
that we're working on.
That sounds great. Yes. Thank you, Nicole. Cool.
Thank you. All right.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
Ciao. You too.
Bye.
Bye.